Hi and welcome to Giggles and Yarn, my crochet channel. This is Nelly from South Africa. Welkom by Giggles en Gare. Bienvenue à tutti chacun. Today we're going to learn how to crochet this granny square. There are literally hundreds or even maybe thousands of patterns for granny squares. If you're a granny square lover, you would have noticed them already, but this particular granny square was used in my granny square jacket, and this is not a granny square that I've used anywhere else so far, so it's just to show you which granny square I used for my granny square jacket. It makes quite an impression, so here we go. So take a color of your choice and make a magic ring. For magic circle, I have a tutorial for a magic ring on my channel, and I'll insert the link in the description box below. This chain I just made is part of the magic ring. So there's your completed magic ring. Now chain 4. This chain 4 is our first treble crochet. Now yarn over twice, insert your hook into the magic ring, pull up a loop, and there you have 4 loops on your hook. Now yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 more loops, and yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. That is your treble crochet. Now make 6 more treble crochets into the magic ring for a total of 8 treble crochets. I sometimes pull my magic ring a little bit tighter to make it easier to work with, and continue putting treble crochets into the magic ring. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've made 7 treble crochets. I'm going to make 1 more, and then we have 8 treble crochets for row 1. Now we're going to end off. Pull your magic ring tight. Always leave that little tail there in the middle at the back. And we're going to count up 4 chains. Go through both loops. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4th loop. Go through both loops, and then we're going to make a slip stitch. Go under both loops, make a slip stitch, and we're going to end off. Because of the treble crochets, it's bending a little bit, but it will be smoothed out when we work with it. Smoothed out. Chain 1, cut your yarn and pull through. That's the end of row 1 and the end of our first color. We're going to change colors for each row. That's what's unique about the granny squares. They're made with scrap yarn mostly, and varied colored project. So there's our first color, our first row. Now we're going to start anywhere in between the treble crochets. Don't crochet in the top stitches, not there, but in these bottom spaces. Take your second color, pull up a loop, and then you can all go through both strands, make a chain, and then make 3 chains. This chain 3 represents your first double crochet. Now make 2 more double crochets into that same space. And in some of the spaces we're going to make, okay, this is now called a granny cluster stitch. Now let's make one more granny cluster stitch into the same space. Don't put any chain in between, just straight forward. There, another granny cluster stitch into the same space. Granny squares vary and differ so much, but for this granny square, this is what we're going to do. There are now 2 granny clusters into the same space. It looks like just 6 double crochets, but you'll see how it turns out. Now go directly to the next space and make a granny cluster stitch. That's 3 double crochets into the next stitch. And we'll go to the next stitch. Again, we're going to make 2 granny clusters. So 2 granny clusters in one stitch and 1 granny cluster in the next stitch, and we continue with this pattern all around. So it's basically 3 double crochets in one stitch and in 6 double crochets in the next stitch, and in row 3 they'll be split. So there's your 1, 2, 3 double crochets into that stitch. Now into the same space we make 3 more double crochets. As I said, row 3 will separate them, and then they will be visible as 2 separate granny clusters. Continue like this all around to the end. Now I've completed 7 spaces, and now I'm going to crochet into the last space, and the last one will be 1 granny cluster, which equals 3 double crochets. Into the same space, and there we are. That completes row 2, and now we make a slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, go through both loops and slip stitch. Now we can end off row 2. We've come to the end of our second color. Make a chain, cut your yarn and pull through. Now we've got our 2 colors, our 2 rows, and for a granny square we still have 2 rows. I'm just going to tie my yarns to secure them, and I'll work them away soon. I like to have my yarns same length, and these 2 as well. Not too tight because you don't want it to warp, but just a little bit, and then we'll work it away smoothly at the end. I always keep all my tail offcuts to stuff my projects with. And there we go. Well done. So now choose your 3rd color and start anywhere in row 2 in between the clusters. Don't start in the stitch on top of the clusters. Start in between the clusters in the spaces in between the clusters. Start in any space. Make sure it's in between the clusters. And we're going to pull up a loop and chain one, and you can go through both strands just to have it more secure, and then we are going to chain 3. This is our first double crochet. Now make 2 more double crochets into the same space. And then chain 1. Now count 3, and in between those clusters, yes, there, we are going to make another granny cluster stitch, which consists of 3 double crochets. So in that same space, make 2 more double crochets to form our granny cluster stitch, and 1 more. And remember, chain 1 and go all the way around. Chain 1. Always remember. Now count 3, and in between those clusters, we make our next granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets. Double crochet in this case represent 3 chains. So in case you either UK or US crochet terminology, it is the 3 chain representative stitch. And continue making 3 double crochets into every space between the granny clusters. And so we continue all the way around. 1, 2, 3, in there. One day I want to do a little video about choosing colors and which colors go the best together. Not always possible if we work with scrap yarn, but it's really interesting and fun. There we go. There's another space between 3, and there we go. Make 3 double crochets. That represents our granny cluster stitch. There we go. And remember to chain 1 in between each cluster. Continue all the way around. Now I've reached my last space. 11, and I'm going to make the 12th one with you. Remember, chain 1 after each cluster, and in that last space we make our last number 12 granny cluster. 3 double crochets, and that's the end of row 3. We're going to remember chain 1 and then into the 3rd chain from the bottom, go under both loops and make a slip stitch. Chain 1, cut your yarn and pull through, and there we have the end of our 3 colors. And after this we're going to start making the actual square. Well done. Now the next row forms the square. So choose your next color and we're going to work into the spaces between the granny clusters. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, and you can go through both strands and chain 1. That is your new color attached. Now chain 3. This chain 3 represents 1 double crochet. Now make 2 more double crochets into that same space. And chain 1. Into the next space between the next set of granny clusters, make another granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets, and chain 1, and into the next space between the granny clusters, make 3 double crochets, which represent 1 granny cluster, and chain 1. Now into the next space between the granny clusters, make 3 double crochets, which represent 1 granny cluster. And now we're making the corner. So chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same space, 2 chains, make 1 more granny cluster into that same space, which consists of 3 double crochets. Now into this same corner space, we've now actually formed a corner space. We formed a corner space by making 2 granny clusters, and in between them is 2 chains. Now for the next 2, we're going to just make a granny cluster, 1 granny cluster in each space, and then in the 3rd space we're going to form another, or shape another corner. So chain 1, and in next one, 1 double crochet, 1 granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets, and in the 3rd one we make another corner. So we have 12 stitches, basically clusters, and for the 12 clusters we're going to make 4 corners, which means every 3rd cluster space gets a corner. There, remember, 2 chains, and into the same space another granny cluster, which means 3 double crochets, and this forms our 2nd corner. Chain 1. There's our 2nd corner. Corner, cluster, cluster, corner. Each corner consists of 2 clusters with a chain 2 in between. Now continue, and in the next space between the granny clusters, make a granny cluster and chain 1. In the next one, a granny cluster and chain 1. And in the 3rd one, we make another corner. Remember, chain 1 after each granny cluster, and in this space we're going to make a granny cluster, chain 2, and another granny cluster into the same space. One, 2 chains, and into the same space 1 more granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets. Now we've got our 3rd corner, and chain 1, In the next space, a granny cluster, and chain 1, and in the next space a granny cluster, that means a chain 1 space. So when I say space, I mean all the chain 1 spaces. And after this granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets, chain 1. So there you can see we've gone all the way around, making our square with corners. And now we've got 3 corners. And now we're coming to that chain 1 space where we've made our first granny cluster. And into that same space, we are going to shape our last corner by making a granny cluster, which consists of 3 double crochets. And after the 3 double crochets, we'll make 2 chains. 1, 2, and then we connect the 2 clusters by making a slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the bottom. And we end off by making a chain, cut our yarn, and pull through, and there we have our granny square. Well done. Just shape it a little bit. Voila. There's our granny square. Well done. So now we have completed our square around. Well done. Well done. Thumbs up. Until next time. Tot volgende keer.